What's up YouTube, this is Ryan from AnnihilatorMTG here, and I'm back again with some more Modern. This week I'm going to be playing the long-awaited Griefblade. After playing with Grief and Living End, feel free to check out last week's video by the way, I was immediately hooked on the cards, so let's break down the list. Starting off with some of the new stuff, this deck leverages some of the ever-popular Evoke cards, both Grief and Solitude respectively. These cards by themselves are very strong. We're basically running legacy cards but stapled onto a creature, which is actually the key to this deck. Why do you ask? Because of Ephemerate and Malakir Rebirth. These cards allow us to trigger each creature's ETB effect multiple times, while also enabling us to keep the body around, effectively circumventing the downside of the Evoke mechanic. In terms of other new cards, we're also running a 4-2 split of both Voidwalker and Sanctifier. Voidwalker has the benefit of being basically unblockable while having an absolutely ridiculous effect. Imagine a Leyline of the Void that can also cast one of your opponent's spells for free. It's kind of insane. Sanctifier, on the other hand, laughs in the face of Rakdos decks. In those matchups, it's a phenomenal creature to use your equipment on. Speaking of which, it wouldn't be a Stoneblade deck without the aforementioned Stoneforge Mystic. We're running the now classic setup of Sword, Batterskull, and Kaldra. The rest of the build is more or less a bog-standard mid-range deck. It is worth noting that we've chosen not to run Liliana the Veil. This isn't to say that Lily isn't good in this deck, but I wanted to try and keep the colors as even as possible. In her place, we're going to be running a myriad of Orzhov 3-drops, those being Kaya, Vindicate, and Kaya's Guile. Overall, this deck seems awesome, so let's not waste any time here and head straight into the first match. Okay, looks like we found our opponent here. Best of luck to you, my friend, and this hand seems awesome. Definitely keeping this. They lead off with an untapped Breeding Pool and Suspend a Footfalls, fair enough. We draw another Sanctifier. Let's jam the Courtyard and cast our Inquisition. Wow, and this is quite the hand. Mainboard Mystical Dispute and Murktide Region. Can't say I expected either, but we'll take the Dispute. They downtick and jam their Misty, passing straight away. At the very least, they're giving us some setup time. Drawing a Sword. Let's play and crack the Marsh Flats, grabbing an untapped Godless Shrine. And then we'll cast Sanctifier number 1, this way they can't leverage their Dead Gone. On our end step, they crack their fetch for a tap Stomping Ground, followed up by a Scalding Tarn, and I guess that's it. We draw Thoughtseize, not the land we were hoping for, but this should do. Let's cast it. In this scenario, I actually think it's better to take the Dead Gone. Murktide Region is really good, but I think it's beatable. Time for an attack, that brings them down to 15. During our end step, they crack their fetch for a tap Steam Vents. Up next, they play a basic island, casting the Murktide Region. This both taps them out and empties their yard. Drawing a Malakir Rebirth, it should be safe to cast our Voidwalker, then we'll play our land. Sadly, we'll have to hold back for now. On their upkeep, their Footfalls comes off Suspend, netting them 2 Rhinos. They play a Misty, and then swing in with their Regent. That takes us down to 11. We draw Silent Clearing, might as well play it. Then we'll cast our Stoneforge Mystic, grabbing a Batterskull for that lifelink. Finally, we'll activate our Voidwalker, choosing the Footfalls and casting it immediately. As per usual, they crack their fetch, finding a tapped Breeding Pool, continuing to flood out as they play another land, attacking us for 4 in the air. We're at 7. They pass and we draw Vindicate. I see no reason to flinch, so we'll send it back. They attack us immediately. That brings us down to 3. Normally I'd be worried, but it's not like they can run Lightning Bolts. On their end step, let's activate the Stoneforge, jamming the Batterskull. Then we draw Push. That could be useful. Let's attack with our lifelink Germ. Ah, they cast a Petty Theft. Brutal. Our only option now is to Vindicate the Murktide Regent. Here's hoping they don't have a force. It resolves. Things are getting dicey as they cast their Borrower. We're able to push it, but that leaves us exposed to both Stomp and Prismatic Command. Alright opponent, let's see what you got. Shardless Agent, yep, that's pretty good. They get some more Rhinos. Then they swing in. Don't have much of a choice here. We'll block. We draw Solitude, that's pretty good. Let's jam the Kaya, then we'll downtick, exiling one of their tokens, and now we wait. Whoa, Cons block All-Star Savage Knuckleblade? I have no idea if their build is tuned properly or not, and I do not care. This is awesome. It resolves, and they give it haste, attacking with a team. We'll block like this, and then we'll evoke the Solitude, targeting the Rhino. We have to do this because of the trample. Knuckleblade is all that remains. We draw Grief, let's uptick the Kaya, gaining a little bit of life. Then we'll jam our dude, discarding a Temur Ascendancy. Man, this brew is something else. Looks like they drew a land, activating the pump effect and attacking our face. We have no choice but to block, drawing an Inquisition that's no good. Time to cash in the Horizon land, seeing a Hallowed Fountain, and they got us. Okay, so let's make some changes. The Kaya was fine, but it feels a bit slow for what it does, so we'll cut her, 2 copies of Vindicate, and a single Ephemerate. Then we'll bring in 2 each of Dam and Void Mirror. Yep, looks good to me. Wow, this hand is nuts. It has the Grief combo and some follow-up. This is what we signed up for. Let's Let's play and crack our fetch, grabbing a Godless Shrine. Time to evoke the Grief. For our first selection, we'll take the Dead Gone, then cast the Ephemerate, this time taking the Shardless Agent, and we should be good to go. On their turn, they play a tapped Hinterland Harbor that's about as slow as it gets. We get to rebound the Ephemerate, targeting the Grief, this time discarding the Giant, drawing a copy of Dam, not bad. Let's play the flip land, then we'll cast the Voidwalker. This has us so far ahead that I wouldn't be surprised if they just scooped it up. They choose to fight on, however, as they play a basic mountain, passing it back. We draw Silent Clearing, might as well play it. Then we'll attack for 6, taking them down to 14. Up next, they jam a Horizon Land of their own, followed up by a Shardless Agent, cascading into a Footfalls and getting some Rhinos. Drawing a sword, let's play the Hallowed Fountain tapped, then we'll cast it, choosing to attack with a Voidwalker, and now we wait. They play and crack a Scalding Tarn, finding a basic island, casting Prismatic Command, choosing Loot 2 and targeting our Voidwalker. Interesting, they attack us with just the Shardless Agent. This feels like a mistake. Seeing another land, let's play it. Then we equip the sword, followed up by Dam targeting a Rhino. Now they can't block. We swing in, that takes them down to 4. Then we'll hit the Shardless Agent with a sword trigger. Figures we would draw another land, but it seems like they've had enough. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with the changes, so let's try it one more time. This hand seems good enough, not as exciting as the last one, but that's fine. They start things off with a Scalding Tarn, passing straight away, and we draw Grief. Yeah, that changes things a bit. Let's play an untapped Godless Shrine, then we'll evoke the Grief. In response to the triggers, they crack their fetch, grabbing an untapped Stomping Ground. Then they cast a copy of Dead. Don't really understand that, but we'll cast the Ephemerate, discarding the Violent Outburst, then the Shardless Agent. It is going to take a miracle for them to come back from this. On their main phase, they play and crack a Misty, finding a tapped Breeding Pool. That appears to be it. We get to rebound the Ephemerate, targeting the Grief, and seeing a Leyline, brutal, drawing a Solitude. Let's play and crack the fetch, grabbing another Godless Shrine, and finally casting the Voidwalker. Second verse same as the first, as they play and crack another Misty, this time snagging a basic. Wow, and they managed to draw a Shardless Agent. If we didn't have the Voidwalker, that might have been good enough. Either way, they've got their 10 power. Man, and we draw another Ephemerate? Okay, guess we'll evoke the Solitude, targeting Rhino number 1, blinking the Solitude, and then targeting Rhino number 2. Afterwards, we'll sack the Voidwalker and choose the Footfalls, this time casting it ourselves. Finally attacking with Grief, and we'll send it back. Looks like they drew a copy of Gone, so there goes one of our Rhinos. They pass. Oh yeah, I forgot about the rebound. I guess we'll blink the Solitude and take care of the Shardless Agent. Drawing into some rather useless hand attack, let's swing in for 7. That'll bring him down to 15. Up next, they cast a Prismatic Command, killing the Solitude and making a token. We draw a land, let's play it. Then we'll attack for 7 once again. They're at 8, and I guess they've had enough. GG's. Alrighty, looks like we found our opponent here. Best of luck to you, my friend. And this hand is kind of lame, so I think we're going to mulligan. This is much better. Let's ship the basic and see what happens. They get things started with a basic mountain into a Monastery Swiftspear, attacking us for 1. And we see an Ephemerate, just what the doctor ordered. Let's play an untapped Godless Shrine. Then we'll evoke the Grief, followed up by an Ephemerate. They've got a Lightning Bolt and a Light Up the Stage, discarding both. If I'm not mistaken, we pretty much have this one in the bag. All they can do is play a basic mountain and pass their turn. Ephemerate gets rebounded, targeting the Grief. Looks like they drew a copy of Fury. That'll get discarded. Then we draw Vindicate. Let's play the Horizon Land, and since they're empty-handed, we can cast the Stoneforge Mystic without much concern. Grabbing a Sword of Fire and Ice, and they've seen enough. Sideboarding in this matchup is relatively easy. We definitely want to cut the Thoughtseizes and probably a Vindicate. That way we can bring in 2 Sanctifiers and another Kaya. It might be better to cut something like the Kaldra, but if we can get them empty-handed, that might just be the thing we need to close out the game. Yeah, we'll submit. Okay, so this hand is very solid. If it had a Grief instead of an extra Stoneforge, this would be close to perfect. Either way, we'll keep it. Seems like they mulligan to 6, as they play the tried and true Mountain in a Monastery Swiftspear, attacking us for 1. Alright, let's see what we draw. Ooh, a Sanctifier. This complicates things a bit. For now, we'll play our fast land and then cast the Prismatic Ending. They immediately untap and cast a Soulscar Mage, passing it straight back, so it looks like they missed a land drop. We draw an Inquisition, let's play our flip land, and then for fun, we'll cast a Stoneforge Mystic. I almost want this to take a Lightning Bolt to the face, that way we can get some life buffer. Sanctifier is safer, but I like this a bit more. Let's grab the sword. On their turn, they attack immediately, bringing us down to 18, followed up by a light up the stage. Well, if they were looking for mana, they didn't find any. We draw basic swamp right on time, let's play it, then we'll cast the Inquisition. Seeing 2 lightning bolts and 2 creatures, might as well take a bolt. Then to encourage them even more, we'll cast Stoneforge number 2, this time grabbing a Batterskull. And now, even if they had the mana, they wouldn't be able to answer both copies of Stoneforge without hurting their card quantity to an irreparable degree. Let's swing in, and then we'll send it back. They start things off with a Lava Dart, pumping up their mage. Ooh, and they evoke a Fury. That's one way of answering the board. Attacking us for 2 and bringing us down to 15. This is what I mean though. That was solid on their part for sure, but now they've only got 2 cards left. Drawing another Voidwalker, might as well cast it, and now we can even protect it with the Ephemerate. On their main phase, they cast a DRC, then attack us for 1, taking us down to 14. We draw Grief. Before we do anything else, let's evoke it. Seeing a Fury and a Lightning Bolt, spooky stuff. We'll take the Fury, then cast the Ephemerate. That way we can also get the Lightning Bolt. So now we can actually sack our Voidwalker to cast their Fury, devastating their board in the process. And they scoop it up, GG's. Alrighty, looks like we found our opponent here. Best of luck to you, my friend. And this hand is definitely keepable. Let's start things off with a fetch, which we'll crack immediately, grabbing an untapped Godless Shrine, and then we'll cast our Inquisition. Oh boy, looks like we're playing against Living End. Discarding the Force, they jam a Spire Bluff and send it back as we draw another Solitude. Think we'll play an untapped Hallowed Fountain and cast the Sanctifier. I don't expect this card to help a ton, but it is a clock and a mild annoyance at that. On our end step, they cycle a Riverwinder, untap and playing a Misty Rainforest. The best we can hope for is that they either stumble on mana or brick their draws. We see an Ephemerate, that can be useful. Either way, let's play our land for turn, then we'll swing in for 2, taking them down to 18. They cycle a Curator, then crack their Misty, grabbing an untapped Breeding Pool, make that 2 Curators. On their main phase, they regrettably evoke a Grief, taking the Ephemerate. The Grief goes to exile. Ooh, and we draw Thoughtseize. Let's cast it. Unfortunately, they respond with a Violent Outburst, cascading into a Living End. The Living End will resolve. Same thing with our Thoughtseize. We'll take the Waker. The real issue here is the Riverwinder. That having hexproof means that even if we draw another Ephemerate, it won't have that backbreaking effect that it normally does when paired with something like Solitude. We'll pass in the meantime. They swing in with a team. Before damage, we'll evoke a Solitude. That'll exile one of their creatures. All said and done, that takes us down to 4, and we draw land. That's not going to do it. I suppose we could have preemptively evoked a Solitude before the Living End actually resolved, but knowing our draws, it likely wouldn't have mattered. Okay, this might be a little bit crazy, but we'll cut the Prismatic Endings, Fatal Pushes, Vindicates, and a Sanctifier. That way we can bring in Ashiok, Akaya, 2 copies of Rest in Peace, and the Void Mirrors. The big question mark is the Sanctifier. We could probably cut something else, but I want to test how much it matters in the matchup. We'll submit. Oh wow, this hand is incredible. Keeping this every time. Let's lead off with a Courtyard, then cast a Thoughtseize. They do have a pretty compelling hand. Definitely taking the Violent Outburst though. They jam a Misty, and it looks like they drew a black source for their Grief. Bummer. There goes the Rest in Peace. We draw Thoughtseize, playing a tapped Hallowed Fountain, and I think we'll hold off for now. During our end step, they crack their fetch for a tapped Breeding Pool. As expected, they play their Spire Bluff and pass in an instant, drawing an Inquisition. Let's play our Godless Shrine, and then we'll cast it. No dice. We could evoke the Grief to load up the yard, but I still think waiting is better. Before their next turn, they cycle their Waker, playing a basic island and passing yet again. I'm a little worried about this. We draw land, let's play it, then we'll cast the Thoughtseize. It resolves, so we should be in the clear. Discarding their Grief. Second verse, same as the first, as they cycle another Waker, then a Riverwinder. Up next, they play Botanical Sanctum, and nothing else. We draw land of our own. At this point, I think it's better just to cast the Grief. Discarding the Riverwinder, that way we force them to use life, and they do. They play another Botanical Sanctum. I guess we follow suit by drawing a land as well. Let's play it, then we'll swing in, taking them down to 14. The miracles continue as they play a third Botanical Sanctum. On their end step, we'll crack our fetch for a basic, then cash in the Horizon land, drawing an Inquisition, and then Akaya's Guile. Now we're talking. Let's get some intel by casting the Inquisition. They've got nothing to speak of, so now we can play it real slow with Akaya's Guile. Attacking for 3 and bringing them down to 11. Seemingly quite annoyed with the state of things, they play a Spire Bluff and send it back. This should give us the all clear to cast the Akaya's Guile, and then they scoop it up. Nice. That was a little bit slow, but I like the changes, so we'll try it again. Alright, so this might be really dumb, but I think we're going to keep this hand. It's janky for sure, but it's got a ton of potential if we can draw a white source. They get things rolling with a Spiral Bluff Canal and immediately cycle a Riverwinder. That does have me a bit worried about Grief. Guess they didn't have it, as we draw Sanctifier. There's still a chance, so let's play our basic and then cast the Thoughtseize. Looks like our concerns were valid. With that said, it would be really stupid not to take the Shardless Agent. In keeping with tradition, they cycle another Riverwinder, then they Planecrack a Misty Rainforest, grabbing an untapped Breeding Pool, cycling a Curator, and it looks like they found a black source as they evoke their Grief. I'm sorry, what? They take an Ephemerate? That seems adventurous to say the least. Yep, and they're gonna be punished for it. We draw Flip Land, let's play it. Then we'll evoke the Grief just in case, discarding another Shardless Agent. Finally, we'll cast the Void Mirror, and this should lock them out quite easily. Granted, it is still weak to Petty Theft and I suppose Prismari Command, but outside of that, we should be in the clear. They untap and cycle their Waker, no doubt looking for some mana, finding a Steam Vents, which comes into play untapped. We draw Malakir Rebirth. This could be wrong, but we'll play the land side. Then we'll cast our Stoneforge Mystic, and it looks like they scoop it up, GG's. And there you have it. Griefblade is a definite contender in the format. I knew that the Grief plus Ephemerate combo was strong, but now that I've used it myself, I really understand just how ridiculous that sequence can be. Even outside of those busted turn 1 plays, this deck feels really consistent. When Stoneforge was originally unbanned, I had a lot of hope for Orzhov, but Modern Horizons 2 really took it to the next level. Speaking of MH2, now that I've played a good amount of the newly developed decks, I'm likely going to be revisiting some older stuff over the coming weeks. With that said, I'm always up for suggestions, so don't feel bad if your favorite deck hasn't been featured on the channel yet. One thing I will say is that I'm probably going to be avoiding Ragavan during this time, as I cannot justify the cost right now. I'm sure I'll get a playset eventually though, so no worries. Either way, I appreciate your patience. For those who are itching for another Delver video, please let me know if not including Ragavan is a deal breaker. I can always go mono blue again, as that deck was really awesome, but I want to do my best and put out content that you all are actually interested in watching. And now that I mention it, the same goes for Grixis. If you like my content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. This stuff really does help, so thank you, and as always, stay safe out there and have a good one.